Hi, how are you doing? My name is Nigel Percy and I'm a trainer for the Art of Brilliance, and the program I run most of all for them is called MOJO. And MOJO, odd title, but it's really about motivation under pressure. It's about finding your magic, your mojo, when things aren't going quite so well. It's about accessing your ability when the chips are down. And that's what that's about, and often at the end of the half day, it's 3 hours, 3.5 hours. I'm asked, "Have you got any tips for keeping this going?" Then, after we leave the session, and sometimes we have time for it, and other times we don't. So I thought, if we got 10 minutes, why don't we just go through the top 10 tips that people often ask for at the end? And I often give these as a handout, but you've got them now here. A couple of things here. You might have heard of some of these things before. You might have thought, I read that once. But just because somebody offers you a ham sandwich, you'd never say, oh yeah, I had a sandwich, had a ham sandwich before, don't need one. No, I don't say that. You just try it again. You might be in a different mood. You might be hungrier this time. It's a different ham sandwich. And the other thing, while we're talking about food, and I like to talk about food, is a bit like going to a buffet, this. There will be things in this top 10, I'm sure, a bit like a buffet table where you think, I can't stand snails, I can't stand quail's eggs, or whatever it is. And what you don't do is you don't tip up the buffet table. I hope you don't anyway. What you normally do is just push that to one side. And it's the same with these top 10 tips. There are some things you think, I can't see myself doing that. Just leave it. Just push it to one side and enjoy the other 9. So, let's get on. The first one is probably the hardest one to explain, the most complex, but it's called the Wheel of Life. You may have seen this before, and it's about grading yourself. I suppose most people say, how do I know if I'm making progress with this, Nigel? It's about grading yourself, and in one of 7 areas I've got drawn on my target. But first, all you do is you get yourself a target, you get yourself a wheel, and it's supposed to describe a sort of wheel of a bike, or a unicycle if you like, there's only one wheel. And on mine I've got things like physical, emotional, attitude, career, learning, relationships, that sort of thing. And the idea is that you put 0 in the middle, as I've shown on the thing, and you've got, in my case, 11 on the outside. Could have 10, could be 12, whatever. And then you start to, on this day, for this week, whatever, rate yourself on that scale. Your rating, nobody else's. So if physical is, could do better, I'll give myself a 4 on that. Then you give yourself a 4. And his relationships, that might be a lot better off. You give yourself an 8 for that. And the idea is that you track yourself. Maybe it's a week, maybe it's a month, maybe it's 3 months later. You give yourself a different score. And then you have a look at your wheel. As your wheel increases, it got bigger. The idea of the bigger wheel is that you'll find it easier to go through life with a bigger wheel. The other thing you can find out is that if you've got a dip in that wheel, if you've got a dent in that wheel, say physical is not so good, then you'll still roll along, but you're going to feel a bump every time you're trying to access physical. And that's what that's about. Give it a go. See if it works for you. The second thing, and this is probably going back in time, I know, back to the future. What you're seeing on the screen now is a cassette, and it lines up with vinyl records as one of the things where we used to access music back in the day. And the idea of a cassette is that you can record your choice of music onto the cassette, a bit like you could download from Spotify now. And people used to put specific things on these tapes. In fact, they even used to call them mixtapes and record things for other people to try and influence them about their favourite type of music. The other thing you can do with this though is put your stuff on the tape, so that you can have a tape for energy, you could have a tape for feeling lonesome, you can have a tape for really feeling vital. And on the programme we talk about defining your soundtrack. What do you want going through your head? What's your self-talk? What have you chosen to put on your mixtape, and is that the appropriate one for the day? So think about, when you're creating a soundtrack in your head, is it useful? Is it helpful? It doesn't have to be on a cassette, it's just in your head. So, number 3, and this is a backdrop of this, is the Art of Brilliance often used mantra, choose to be positive. It's a choice to be positive as opposed to any other state. And I would say accentuate the positive. You need to be sort of aware of your language. I remember when I was a kid, there was a program on TV called Mind Your Language. And it wasn't about swearing or anything like that. It was about how language changes for different people. They had different people from different races, different walks of life. It was a comedy. Wouldn't be shown nowadays. It's just inappropriate. But the idea is that your language affects your mindset. And your language and the way you phrase things affects the people around you. And especially if you're a teacher, a trainer, a boss, a leader, whatever, then the way you carry on being positive or negative affects other people as well as you. So, example phrases, we've got 4 here. Number 1, I can't do it. Often people say I can't, I shouldn't, I won't, whatever. Can you find a more positive way of saying that? Okay, you can't do it, but what about I can't do it yet? Or I could do it if? The simple thing of don't forget is a negative phrase. What about remember? Remember to pick up eggs on your way home, toilet rolls, whatever. Yeah? And you can have a go at the other 2. And on the program, we've got a lot of these you can practice with to get your phraseology more positive. Now, this one's a bit weird, and if you've got a local locksmith, you can freak him out, or her, by going down there and say, could you buff up this key, please? They may charge you 20p for this, but it's worth it. Take your house key, take your apartment key, your flat key, and give it to them, and get them to buff it up, either to a sort of golden sheen, a golden key, or if it's a silver one, to a bright silver key, and say, then, thank you very much, and take it home. This is a reminder, that's all it is, that every time you approach your house, your home, your flat, whatever, that the people on the other side, even if it's only a cat, even if you live on your own, that once you step through that threshold, you can be at your best. You can be at your most golden self. You can access that part of you that's not like you are at work. It's not like you are when you're out. It's what you are when you're inside. The best version of you. Just a reminder. So, number 5. It's a bit weird as well. This is known as I call it the Edison pad. Scientists have proven over and over again that we have different brain waves as we are sleeping, the ones we're half awake, the ones we're daydreaming, and then when we're fully awake. When we're daydreaming, you're alpha brain waves, and when we're half asleep, just waking up, just going to bed, just falling asleep, they're called theta brain waves. And this is when we're the most susceptible and open to new ideas. In fact, monks in the old days used to use vespers and matins to pray or to take advice from God. And therefore, vespers and matins were morning and evening, and that they knew about this sort of power of this stuff. And the idea of this is that you're going to get your best ideas, according to scientists, when you're just doing boring tasks and alpha brainwaves are being used, or when you're just falling asleep or just waking. And therefore, having a pad, a post-it note as pictured here, by the side of your bed to capture those amazing creative ideas would be a great thing to do. The example is a bit weird because it's the working title of Yesterday by the Beatles. McCartney says the whole thing came to him in a dream almost. All the music, the melody came to him in a dream, and the working title was Scrambled Eggs. He'd not got Yesterday, the lyrics, so they used to use the music and the melody until they came up with a lyric for that. Quite weird. Now, Art of Brilliance, we call it special pants. You'll often hear the Art of Brilliance people talking about don't reserve your special pants that you find in your drawer, special socks, whatever it is for special days. Wear them now. Make the most of today. Be mindful about being here now. I also would extend this to what I call top gear, or nowadays top hat and tails. If you want to feel good, wear the stuff that makes you feel good. I don't know how often, a bit like me, you've put on a shirt and think, oh, it's a bit tight. I don't feel too good in this. I don't like this particular colour. It pinches around the collar, whatever. Chuck it away. I mean, we're all pretty well off, and we're all well enough off to buy a new shirt, especially with places like Primark around. So if you want to feel good, wear the stuff that makes you feel good. And as I say, don't keep stuff for special occasions. Today is special enough. Number 7 is thank you. And the advice is simply, as soon as you can in the morning, whether it's in writing, whether it's on email, WhatsApp, face-to-face, over the telephone, whatever, say thank you to somebody for something they've done. A genuine thank you. It actually makes 2 people's day. The person you're talking to and you as well. And you'll try this and you'll get the power of saying thank you and feeling good first thing in the morning. If you want to get good, my advice is to find somebody who's already good at what you're trying to do. So whether it's a coach, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a friend, whether it's somebody who shares your goal, get with them, be with them, Understand how they got from where they were to where they are now, understand their journey, get their support, and share what you're trying to do, and stick with them, and make sure that you learn from the people who do the stuff the best. Great idea. If you want to be a marathon runner, what do? You don't run marathons, because only marathon runners run them 2 or 3 times a year at the most. What are they doing the rest of the time? Well, they're training. They're keeping fit, they're eating the right food, they're putting their running stuff on, they're preparing to go out for a run, they're coming back from a run, whatever. Same as guitarists, they're not on stage the whole time, they're practicing chords, they're practicing notes, they're practicing fretting, they're picking up the guitar and just thinking about what they might play. If you want to get to be a superhuman individual, then look like it, start to dress like it, start to do the things that superhuman people do. Nearly there, last one. Now, this doesn't say furlough. You may have been dragged into that. This is furlong. Anybody who goes to horse races, puts on a bet, knows what a furlong is. It's 1/8 of a mile. It's an old imperial measure of distance. And horse races are still measured as sprints anyway, in 5 furlongs, 6 furlong dashes. And it doesn't matter whether it's 1/8 of a mile, but what I would say is about 1/8 of a mile from home, and that would be about, 1/10 of a kilometre. Maybe more, yeah. Pick out something that you can always remember, whether it's a lamppost, whether it's a street sign, whether it's a different house, whether it's a corner of a road or a park or whatever, and decide at that moment you're going to be the best version of yourself. This way, it's a bit like Golden Key. On your way home, you decide you're going to drop everything that's bugging you about the day and switch into fabulous mode. Right? And you might have it on the way to work. You might want to get over sort of row you've had at breakfast with your partner, or a bit of road rage that's happened on the way in, and you might want to say, right, when I get to that lamppost, when I get to that corner, I'm going to switch into state management, I guess it's called, the best version of me. I'm going to stay there for as long as it takes. Okay, so what I've just given you is what I call a takeaway menu. 10 things that you can remember that are to do with the MOJO program. Haven't gone into any of the stuff we're going to go through on MOJO, so by all means, use the takeaway menu, stick it in your kitchen drawer, have a look at it from time to time. What I would like to do, though, is sit down with you in, I don't know, however long this is going to last, 2 or 3 months, 3 or 4 months' time, on the MOJO program, with the rest of the people who turn up for that, and really make a difference to your life in terms of how you work and perform under pressure. For now, stay safe, keep well, bye.